The conference room went silent the moment Sophia Lancaster said the words that made three senior executives shift uncomfortably in their leather chairs. Your projections are off by at least 30%, and if we proceed with this acquisition based on faulty numbers, we'll be explaining to shareholders why we just burned through $200 million. She stood at the head of the table, her tailored navy suit sharp against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The morning sun caught the auburn highlights in her dark hair as she turned to face the room full of men who had underestimated her since the moment she walked through the door of Hartman Capital 6 months ago. "Miss Lancaster, with all due respect," began Gerald, the chief financial officer whose receding hairline seemed to recede further every time she challenged his numbers. "No, Gerald. With all due respect to the shareholders and this company's reputation, your team used outdated market analysis. The retail sector isn't what it was 2 years ago when you ran these models." Sophia clicked her remote, and the projection screen behind her lit up with her own analysis. "I spent the last 72 hours rebuilding your entire valuation from the ground up. The target company's physical locations are a liability, not an asset. Foot traffic is down 42% year over year in their key markets." The door to the conference room opened quietly, but Sophia was too focused to notice. She continued, her voice steady and confident as she dismantled the proposed deal piece by piece. "Furthermore, their e-commerce infrastructure is 5 years behind their competitors. The integration costs alone would eat up any projected synergies for at least 3 fiscal years." From his position near the door, Lucas Jameson watched her with an intensity that would have made his assistant nervous had she been there to see it. He had been on his way to a meeting with the board of directors of one of his other companies when he heard raised voices from the conference room. As the founder and CEO of Jameson Industries, a multinational conglomerate worth $12 billion, Lucas had learned to recognize talent when he saw it. And right now, he was seeing someone special. He had acquired Hartman Capital 3 weeks ago as part of a larger portfolio expansion, and this was his first visit to their New York offices. The woman commanding the room had the kind of presence that couldn't be taught in business school. She was methodical, passionate, and absolutely fearless. "The deal is a trap," Sophia concluded, "and I'm recommending we walk away." The room erupted in protests, but she stood her ground, answering every challenge with data, logic, and a composure that impressed even the most skeptical voices around the table. Lucas found himself checking his watch. His board meeting was starting in 10 minutes across town. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to his assistant, "Cancel the board meeting, reschedule for tomorrow." The reply came back immediately. "Sir, we've already rescheduled twice. They're waiting for you." Lucas typed back without hesitation. Something more important came up. "Handle it." He slipped his phone back into his pocket and leaned against the wall, completely captivated by the way Sophia Lancaster commanded respect from people who clearly didn't want to give it to her. By the time the meeting ended 40 minutes later, Sophia had won. Gerald grudgingly agreed to table the acquisition pending further review, which everyone in the room knew meant it was dead. As the executives filed out, most avoided eye contact with her, though a few younger analysts offered respectful nods. Sophia gathered her materials, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her system. These battles took everything out of her, but she refused to let anyone see her sweat. That was impressive. She looked up to find a man she didn't recognize standing near the door. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair that was professionally styled but slightly tousled, as if he had been running his hands through it. His suit was clearly custom-made, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, sharp, intelligent, and currently fixed on her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Thank you," she said carefully, trying to place him. "I don't believe we've met. Lucas Jameson." He walked toward her, extending his hand. Sophia felt her stomach drop. Lucas Jameson, the billionaire who had just bought the company. Her new boss's boss's boss. She shook his hand, hoping her palm wasn't as sweaty as she feared. "Mr. Jameson, I didn't realize you were in town. I like to make surprise visits. See how things really run when people aren't preparing for inspections." His handshake was firm, confident. "You just saved this company from a very expensive mistake. Just doing my job. Your job is junior analyst, according to the organizational chart I reviewed last week." Lucas released her hand but didn't step back. That wasn't a junior analyst's presentation. That was the work of someone who should be sitting at the head of this table. Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I've been working in mergers and acquisitions for 5 years. I know what red flags look like." "Then why are you still labeled as junior anything?" Lucas genuinely wanted to know. He had built his empire by recognizing talent and putting people in positions where they could thrive. You would have to ask Gerald that question. Sophia knew she shouldn't be this honest with the owner of the company, but something about Lucas Jameson's directness made her respond in kind. "I've been passed over for promotion twice in the past year, despite consistently outperforming my peers." Lucas's jaw tightened slightly. "That ends today. I want you in my office at 2 o'clock. We need to talk about your role here." Before Sophia could respond, he was gone, leaving her standing alone in the conference room with her heart pounding for entirely new reasons. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Sophia tried to focus on her other projects, but her mind kept drifting back to Lucas Jameson. She had seen him in business magazines and financial news segments, always looking commanding and slightly intimidating. In person, he was even more imposing, but there was something else to a warmth in his eyes when he spoke to her that felt almost personal. At exactly 2 o'clock, Sophia found herself outside the executive suite on the 42nd floor, a level she had never visited before. Lucas's temporary assistant, a efficient-looking woman named Patricia, waved her straight through. Lucas's office was enormous, with windows on 2 walls offering breathtaking views of the city. He stood near one of them, phone pressed to his ear, but gestured for her to come in and sit down. "I understand that, Richard, but I'm not changing my position," Lucas was saying. "The timeline is aggressive because it needs to be. If you can't deliver, I'll find someone who can." He paused, listening. "Good. I'll expect the revised proposal by Friday." He ended the call and turned to face Sophia with an apologetic expression. "Sorry about that. Sometimes people need reminding that deadlines actually mean something." "I understand completely." Sophia settled into one of the chairs facing his desk. Lucas sat down across from her, not behind his desk but in the other chair, eliminating the physical barrier between them. "Tell me about yourself, Sophia, and not the resume version. The real version." The request caught her off guard. "The real version. Where you're from, what made you want to work in finance, what you do when you're not in boardrooms eviscerating bad deals." Sophia found herself smiling despite her nerves. "I grew up in Boston. My father taught economics at a community college, and my mother was a nurse. They taught me that work ethic and intelligence matter more than connections or luck. I fell in love with finance because I loved the puzzle of it, looking at numbers and seeing stories, seeing possibilities or pitfalls that others miss. And when you're not working, honestly, I don't have much time for anything else. This job is demanding." "Too demanding," Lucas said. If you're consistently working at a level above your position, you're being taken advantage of. Welcome to being a woman in finance. Lucas leaned forward, his expression serious. Not in my companies. I don't tolerate discrimination or wasted talent. Which brings me to why you're here. I'm creating a new position, Director of Strategic Analysis. You'll report directly to me and have authority to review and approve or reject any major deal across Hartman Capital. You'll also have a team of 3 analysts of your choosing. Salary is $350,000 plus performance bonuses. Sophia's breath caught. That was more than triple her current salary. Mr. Jameson, Lucas, he interrupted. If you're going to be working directly with me, we should use first names. Lucas, she said, testing the name on her tongue. This is incredibly generous, but I have to ask why. You've only seen one presentation. I saw enough. You have instincts that can't be taught, and you have the courage to use them even when everyone in the room wants you to be quiet. That's rare. He stood and walked to the windows, his hands in his pockets. I built Jameson Industries by trusting my gut about people. My gut says you're someone who will make this company better. Sophia stood as well, her professional instincts warring with a growing awareness of Lucas as more than just a powerful CEO. He had a presence that filled the room, but he also listened in a way that made her feel truly heard. I accept, she said firmly. Thank you for this opportunity. Lucas turned, and the smile that crossed his face was genuine and warm. Good. We'll make the announcement tomorrow. In the meantime, I need your input on something. He walked to his desk and picked up a folder. I'm looking at 3 potential acquisitions in the pharmaceutical sector. I'd like you to review these and tell me what you really think, not what you think I want to hear. When do you need this? Friday morning. We can discuss your findings over breakfast. Sophia hesitated. Breakfast? I do my best strategic thinking in the morning. I have a standing breakfast meeting every Friday with key team members. Your key team now. Lucas handed her the folder. Unless you have a problem with early meetings, no problem at all. What time? 7:30. I'll have Patricia send you the details. As Sophia left his office, folder in hand, she felt like her entire world had shifted. 24 hours ago, she was a junior analyst fighting for scraps of recognition. Now she was director of strategic analysis, reporting to a billionaire who actually seemed to value her opinion. The next few days blurred together as Sophia dove into her new responsibilities. The announcement of her promotion caused ripples throughout Hartman Capital. Some colleagues congratulated her warmly. Others, particularly Gerald and his circle, were less enthusiastic. But with Lucas's clear support, even her harshest critics kept their complaints private. Friday morning arrived cold and bright. Sophia dressed carefully in a charcoal gray suit and arrived at the restaurant at 7:25. Lucas was already there, seated at a quiet corner table, reviewing something on his tablet. You're early, he said, standing as she approached. I like that. I'm always early to important meetings. Is that what this is, an important meeting? There was something playful in his tone that made Sophia's heart skip. Isn't it? Lucas pulled out her chair. Let's say it is for now. Did you get a chance to review the pharmaceutical files? Over coffee and breakfast, Sophia walked Lucas through her analysis. The first 2 potential acquisitions were solid but unremarkable. The third, however, had her excited. This one is brilliant, she said, pulling out her notes. Biogenesis isn't just developing a new medication. They're developing a completely new delivery system that could revolutionize how we treat chronic diseases. The current leadership doesn't fully understand what they have, which is why they are open to selling. But if we acquire them and give their research team proper funding and support, this could be bigger than the company itself. Lucas listened intently, asking sharp questions that showed he had done his own homework. By the time breakfast ended, they had sketched out the framework for a potential deal. "You see things other people miss," Lucas said as the waiter cleared their plates. "That's your superpower." Sophia laughed. "I wouldn't call it a superpower, just attention to detail." "No, it's more than that. You see potential. You see what something could become, not just what it is right now." Lucas paused, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her suddenly aware of how intimate their corner table felt. That's rare. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Sophia didn't want to name. She was attracted to him, that much was obvious. But he was her boss, and she had worked too hard to risk her career on a crush. "We should probably get to the office," she said, breaking eye contact. Lucas nodded slowly, and if he was disappointed by her retreat, he didn't show it. "Right. I have meetings all morning, but I'll be around this afternoon if you need anything." Except Lucas found himself canceling 2 of those morning meetings, choosing instead to walk through Hartman Capital's offices, coincidentally passing by Sophia's new office 3 times. He told himself he was just checking on the integration of departments, but he knew the truth. He wanted to see her. This was new territory for Lucas. At 34, he had built an empire but had sacrificed much of his personal life in the process. His last serious relationship had ended 2 years ago when his girlfriend told him she felt like she was dating his calendar, not him. Since then, he had thrown himself even deeper into work, convinced that he wasn't built for the kind of relationship that required time and attention. But Sophia Lancaster was making him reconsider everything. Over the following weeks, Lucas found excuses to work closely with Sophia. He included her in high-level strategy sessions. He asked her opinion on deals that had nothing to do with Hartman Capital. And he scheduled more breakfast meetings, then lunch meetings, then one memorable dinner meeting that lasted until the restaurant staff started stacking chairs. "I should let you go," Lucas said reluctantly as they stood outside the restaurant near midnight. "You must be exhausted." "I'm not," Sophia admitted. They had spent the last 5 hours talking about everything from market trends to their favorite books to their most embarrassing college stories. She couldn't remember the last time she had enjoyed someone's company this much. "But I probably should get home." Lucas stepped closer, and Sophia's breath caught. For a moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he lifted his hand and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers gentle. "Have dinner with me tomorrow," he said quietly. "Not a work dinner. A real one." Sophia knew she should say no. Every professional instinct screamed that this was a terrible idea, but her heart was louder. "Okay," she whispered. Lucas's smile was worth every risk. "I'll pick you up at 7. The next evening, Sophia changed her outfit 4 times before finally settling on a deep green dress that she had bought on impulse and never worn. When Lucas arrived at her apartment, his expression made her glad she had taken the risk. "You look beautiful," he said simply. He took her to a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, far from the Manhattan power scene where they might run into colleagues or business contacts. It was intimate and warm, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. "How did you find this place?" Sophia asked as they settled into a corner booth. "My college roommate's family owns it. I used to come here when I was starting my first company and couldn't afford anything fancier. Even now, when I want to remember where I came from, I come back." "I didn't realize you started from humble beginnings," Lucas laughed. "Is that the polite way of saying you assumed I was born rich?" "Maybe," Sophia admitted with a grin. "My father was a mechanic. My mother cleaned houses. I paid for college with scholarships and student loans that took me 10 years to pay off." Lucas poured them both wine. Everything I have, I built. Nobody handed me anything. That makes what you've accomplished even more impressive. What about you? You said your parents were a teacher and a nurse. How did they feel about you going into finance? Nervous, Sophia admitted. They worried it would change me, make me hard or cynical. But I promised them I would never compromise my values for money, and I've kept that promise. Is that why you stood up to Gerald? Even though it could have backfired. I stood up to Gerald because he was wrong, and because staying silent would have made me complicit in a bad decision. Sophia met Lucas's eyes. I told you my parents taught me that integrity matters more than convenience. Your parents raised someone remarkable. The evening unfolded like a perfect scene from a movie Sophia hadn't known she wanted to be in. They talked and laughed, sharing stories and dreams. Lucas told her about his vision for Jameson Industries, not just as a profitable company, but as something that could make a real difference. Sophia shared her secret ambition to eventually start a foundation that would help women break into finance and business. Why haven't you? Lucas asked. Money, mostly, and time, and I figured I should achieve more myself before presuming to help others. That's backwards, Lucas said firmly. You don't wait until you're perfect to help people. You help people along the way and you all grow together. It was nearly midnight when they finally left the restaurant. Lucas drove her home, and the car felt too small and too big at the same time. Small, because he was so close. Big, because there was still distance between them. Outside her apartment building, Lucas walked her to the door like they were in a different era. I had a really good time tonight, Sophia said. So did I. Lucas reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Sophia, I need to be honest with you about something. Her heart raced. Okay. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that first morning in the conference room. I've been inventing reasons to see you, to work with you, to be around you. And I know this is complicated because we work together, but he stopped, looking frustrated with himself. I'm usually better with words than this. Sophia squeezed his hand. You're doing fine. What I'm trying to say is that I want to see where this goes, not as colleagues, as something more. But only if you want that too, and only if we can figure out how to do it in a way that doesn't hurt your career or put you in an uncomfortable position. I want that too, Sophia said softly. I've been trying not to want it because it seems so complicated, but I do. Then we'll figure out the complicated parts together. Lucas lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. Can I see you again tomorrow? Tomorrow is Sunday. I'm aware. I was thinking we could do something normal people do on Sundays, maybe brunch, or a walk in the park. Something that doesn't involve spreadsheets or market analysis. Sophia laughed. That sounds perfect. Lucas leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she didn't, he kissed her softly, a gentle press of lips that still managed to make her knees weak. When he pulled back, his eyes were warm and happy. Tomorrow, he promised. Tomorrow, she agreed. Sunday became a pattern. No matter how busy Lucas's schedule got, no matter how many meetings demanded his attention, he protected his Sundays with Sophia. They explored the city like tourists, finding hidden bookstores and art galleries, trying restaurants they would never have visited on their own. At work, they tried to maintain professional boundaries, but it was increasingly difficult. Lucas found himself making excuses to stop by Sophia's office. Sophia caught herself looking for Lucas in every meeting, every hallway. 6 weeks into their relationship, they were discovered. It happened at a company dinner celebrating a successful quarter. Lucas had been careful not to sit next to Sophia or show her any particular attention. But as the evening wore on and drinks flowed, he found her on the restaurant's terrace, looking out at the city lights. Hiding? He asked softly, coming to stand beside her. Just needed some air. Patricia cornered me for 20 minutes asking about my skincare routine. Lucas laughed. Patricia means well. I know. Sophia turned to face him. Sometimes it's hard being in the same room with you and pretending we're just colleagues. I know exactly what you mean. Lucas glanced back at the party, then made a decision. He pulled Sophia close and kissed her properly, deeply, in a way he had been wanting to all evening. Neither of them noticed Gerald step onto the terrace, then quickly retreat. By Monday morning, the rumors had started. By Monday afternoon, they had reached Lucas's office. "We need to talk about this," Patricia said, closing his door behind her. "People are talking about you and Sophia Lancaster." Lucas set down his pen. "What are they saying?" "That you're showing her favoritism because you're involved with her romantically." "Gerald is being particularly vocal about it." "Of course he is." Lucas stood and walked to the window. "Gerald is angry because Sophia exposed his incompetence and because I promoted her over his objections." "Maybe so, but that doesn't make the optics any better." "People are questioning whether her promotion was merit-based or—" "It was merit-based," Lucas said sharply. "Sophia earned that position through her work. What's happening between us personally started after her promotion, and it doesn't change the fact that she's brilliant at her job." "I believe you, but you need to address this before it becomes a bigger problem." Lucas knew Patricia was right. He called Sophia into his office an hour later and closed the door. "People know about us," he said without preamble. Sophia's face went pale. "How?" "Gerald saw us on the terrace Saturday night. He's been spreading it around." "Of course he has." Sophia sank into a chair. "Lucas, I'm sorry. This is exactly what we were trying to avoid. Don't apologize. If anything, I should apologize to you. I'm the one who kissed you in public." Lucas sat beside her. "But we need to decide how we want to handle this. What are our options? We can deny it and be more careful, which I don't want to do because I'm tired of hiding. We can end things, which I really don't want to do. Or we can be honest about it and deal with the consequences." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "If we're honest, people will say I slept my way to this position. Everything I've accomplished will be questioned. Not by anyone whose opinion matters. The people who actually work with you know what you're capable of." Lucas reached for her hand. "But I understand if you want to end this. I won't lie and say it won't hurt, but I'll respect your decision." Sophia looked at their joined hands, then at Lucas's face. She thought about the past 2 months, how happy she had been, how Lucas challenged her intellectually while supporting her emotionally. She thought about how he made her laugh, how safe she felt with him, how the world felt brighter when he was around. "I don't want to end this," she said firmly. "I care about you too much. I care about you too, more than I thought possible this quickly." Then we tell the truth. We don't apologize for it, but we're honest about the timeline and make it clear that our relationship hasn't influenced business decisions. Lucas pulled her into his arms. "You're amazing, you know that. I'm terrified, actually." "Then we'll be terrified together." They called a meeting with HR and the executive team that afternoon. Lucas was direct and clear. He and Sophia were in a relationship that had begun after her promotion. To address any concerns about conflicts of interest, Sophia would report to the CFO for administrative purposes, though she would continue to work with Lucas on strategic initiatives. Her compensation and promotion had been based solely on merit, and anyone who had concerns about her work product was welcome to review it. Gerald tried to argue that the arrangement was inappropriate, but Lucas shut him down quickly. "Your concern is noted, Gerald. But given that you've been blocking qualified people from advancement based on personal bias, your judgment about what's appropriate is questionable." The meeting ended with grudging acceptance from most parties, though it was clear that some people, Gerald included, remained unconvinced. The weeks that followed were difficult. Sophia endured whispers and knowing looks. More than once she overheard comments about her relationship with Lucas, but she kept her head down and her work exemplary. When a major deal she had approved turned out to be wildly successful, generating returns 30% above projections, even her harshest critics had to acknowledge her skill. Lucas, meanwhile, made it clear through both words and actions that anyone who undermined or disrespected Sophia would answer to him. When Gerald made a snide comment during a meeting, Lucas removed him from the project entirely. The message was received loud and clear. 3 months after their relationship became public, Lucas invited Sophia to dinner at a restaurant that had become one of their favorites. She arrived to find the entire place empty except for one table set for 2, with candles and flowers. "Lucas, what is this?" she asked as he greeted her at the door. "I wanted privacy for what I need to say to you." He led her to the table, his hand warm on her lower back. They ordered food neither of them tasted, too focused on each other. Finally, as dessert arrived, Lucas reached across the table and took her hands. "Sophia, I need to tell you something I've been feeling for a while now but wasn't sure how to say." Her heart hammered. "Okay. I'm in love with you, completely, irrevocably in love with you. You're the smartest, strongest, most genuine person I've ever met. You challenge me, you inspire me, and you make me want to be better than I am." Lucas squeezed her hands. "I know it's only been a few months, and I know we've had to deal with more complications than most new couples face, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. "Lucas, you don't have to say anything back. I just needed you to know how I feel." "I love you too," Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've been in love with you for weeks, maybe longer. I've just been scared to say it." "Scared of what?" "Scared that it was too fast, too intense. Scared that if I said it out loud, something would go wrong." She laughed through her tears. "But I can't keep pretending I don't feel it. I love you, Lucas Jameson." Lucas stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. "I have something else to tell you," Lucas said, leading her back to her seat. "I've been thinking about the foundation you mentioned, the one to help women break into business. I want to fund it." "What, Lucas, that's too much." "It's not. I want to give you $10 million as seed funding. You design the program, you run it however you see fit, and we make sure that other brilliant women get the chances you had to fight for." Sophia was speechless. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Say you'll let me support your dreams the way you've been supporting mine." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course yes." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of joy and planning. They talked about the foundation, about their future, about the life they wanted to build together. When Lucas took her home that night, neither of them wanted the evening to end. "Come up," Sophia said at her door. It wasn't the first time she had invited him in, but something about tonight felt different, weighted with meaning. Inside her apartment, Lucas pulled her close, his hands framing her face as he kissed her slowly, thoroughly. "I love you," he murmured against her lips. "I love you too." That night marked a new chapter in their relationship, one where they stopped holding back and let themselves fully embrace what they had found together. The next year was a whirlwind. Sophia's foundation launched to widespread acclaim, providing mentorship, funding, and resources to women pursuing careers in business and finance. Her work at Hartman Capital continued to shine, with one successful deal after another cementing her reputation as one of the sharpest minds in the industry. Lucas, meanwhile, found that having Sophia in his life made him not just happier but better at his job. She grounded him, challenged his assumptions, and reminded him why he had started building companies in the first place, not just to make money, but to create value and opportunity. They moved in together after 8 months, finding a penthouse apartment that felt like home to both of them. They learned each other's quirks and habits, navigating the normal challenges of any couple living together for the first time. Lucas discovered that Sophia was terrible about putting dishes in the dishwasher and brilliant at finding the perfect wine for any occasion. Sophia learned that Lucas woke up at 5:30 every morning without an alarm and that he sang badly in the shower but didn't care. One Sunday morning, nearly 2 years after that first conference room meeting, Lucas woke before dawn and watched Sophia sleep. Her dark hair was spread across the pillow, her face peaceful and beautiful. He thought about the life they had built, about how she had changed everything for him. He slipped out of bed carefully and retrieved a small velvet box from where he had hidden it in his study. Then he climbed back into bed and waited for her to wake. Sophia stirred 20 minutes later, blinking sleepily. "Morning," she mumbled. "Morning, I have something for you. If it's coffee, I love you forever." Lucas laughed. "It's not coffee." He held up the box. Sophia sat up abruptly, suddenly very awake. "Lucas," Sophia Lancaster, "you are my best friend, my partner, and the love of my life. You make every day better just by being in it. I want to build a life with you, a family with you, a future with you." He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she nodded. "Yes. Yes, of course yes." Lucas slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "I was going to plan something elaborate," Lucas admitted. "Some big romantic gesture, but I woke up this morning and just knew I didn't want to wait another day to ask you." "This is perfect," Sophia assured him. "You're perfect." They told their families that afternoon in a flurry of excited phone calls. Sophia's parents were thrilled, as were Lucas's. They celebrated with champagne and takeout, too happy to bother with anything more elaborate. The engagement party 2 weeks later was a different story. Lucas insisted on hosting it at his estate in Connecticut, inviting family, friends, and key colleagues. Sophia wore a pale blue dress that made Lucas unable to stop staring at her all evening. "You're being obvious," she teased as they danced. "I don't care. You're beautiful, you're brilliant, and you're going to be my wife. I'm allowed to stare." Even Gerald showed up, though he left early. Before he went, however, he approached Sophia with something resembling humility. "I owe you an apology," he said stiffly. "I underestimated you because of my own biases, and I made your life harder than it needed to be. You've proven yourself many times over, and I was wrong to ever doubt you." Sophia was too surprised to respond immediately. When she found her voice, she said simply, "Thank you for saying that." "I appreciate it." Gerald nodded and left, and Sophia felt a weight lift that she hadn't realized she was carrying. "What was that about?" Lucas asked, appearing at her side with fresh champagne. "Closure," Sophia said, smiling up at him, "and new beginnings." They were married 6 months later in a ceremony that managed to be both elegant and intimate. Sophia walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her eyes locked on Lucas, who looked at her like she was the only person in the world. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to support each other's dreams, challenge each other's assumptions, and love each other through whatever came next. The reception was held in a garden overlooking the Hudson River, with lights strung through the trees and music drifting on the summer air. Lucas and Sophia danced until their feet hurt, talked until their voices were hoarse, and celebrated with the people who mattered most. "Happy?" Lucas asked as they swayed together during a slow song. "Happier than I knew I could be," Sophia answered honestly. Their honeymoon took them to Italy, where they spent 2 weeks eating amazing food, exploring ancient cities, and enjoying being completely disconnected from work. It was the longest Lucas had gone without checking his email in over a decade, and he discovered that the world didn't end when he stepped away. "I could get used to this," he admitted as they sat at a cafe in Rome, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. "To Italy." "We should buy a villa," Sophia joked, to having balance, to making time for what matters. Lucas took her hand across the table. "You've taught me that success means nothing if I'm too busy to enjoy it." "You've taught me that asking for help isn't weakness," Sophia countered. "And that sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all." They returned home to find their lives waiting, Sophia's foundation thriving, Lucas's companies expanding, opportunities and challenges around every corner. But now, they faced everything together. A year after the wedding, Sophia discovered she was pregnant. She told Lucas on another Sunday morning, their sacred day, by simply handing him the positive test when he brought her coffee in bed. Lucas stared at it for a long moment before looking up at her with wonder in his eyes. "Really? Really? You're going to be a father?" He set down the coffee carefully and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "We're going to have a baby." "We're going to have a baby," Sophia confirmed, laughing as Lucas kissed her face, her neck, her shoulders, everywhere he could reach. Pregnancy suited Sophia. She glowed with health and happiness, even as she continued working on a reduced schedule. Lucas was attentive to the point of being slightly ridiculous, insisting she rest constantly and trying to ban her from eating anything that might be remotely questionable. "I can have caffeine, Lucas. The doctor said 1 cup of coffee a day is fine. But do you need coffee? I can make you decaf." "You wouldn't even taste the difference." Sophia gave him a look. "Touch my coffee and I'm filing for divorce." Lucas raised his hands in surrender. "The coffee stays. Got it." Their daughter was born on a clear October morning, 7 pounds and 6 ounces of perfect, squalling humanity. They named her Emma Rose Jameson, and the moment the nurses placed her in Lucas's arms, Sophia saw him fall in love all over again. "She's so tiny," Lucas whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "She's perfect," Sophia corrected from the hospital bed, exhausted but radiantly happy. "She's perfect because she's yours," Lucas said, looking up at his wife with tears in his eyes. "You're both perfect." The early days of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful. They took turns walking Emma when she cried at 3 in the morning. They marveled over every tiny sound and movement. They figured out feeding schedules and diaper changes, and the strange language of newborn sleep patterns. Lucas cut back on his travel, delegating more and trusting his team to handle things he once would have insisted on managing personally. Sophia worked from home 3 days a week, building her schedule around Emma's needs. They learned to be flexible, to ask for help from family, to accept that perfection wasn't the goal, presence was. When Emma was 6 months old, Sophia returned to the office part-time. On her first day back, she found a note on her desk in Lucas's handwriting. "You're an incredible mother, an incredible leader, and incredibly loved. Welcome back." She carried that note in her wallet for years. Life settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable and joyful. Emma grew into a curious, bright toddler who had her father's determination and her mother's analytical mind. The foundation continued to expand, helping hundreds of women launch careers and businesses. Hartman Capital thrived under the leadership of people who valued merit and innovation over politics and tradition. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Lucas and Sophia returned to the small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, where they had their first real date. Emma was with Sophia's parents for the night, giving them rare time alone. "Remember when we sat in this exact booth and you told me about building your company?" Sophia asked, sipping wine. I remember thinking you were the most interesting person I had ever met, Lucas replied. I remember going home that night and knowing my life had changed. Mine too. I tried to tell myself it was just attraction, just chemistry, but I knew even then it was more. Lucas reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. Best decision I ever made, canceling that board meeting to watch you win that argument. Sophia laughed. Best decision I ever made was saying yes when you asked me to dinner. Here's to many more good decisions, Lucas said, raising his glass. To good decisions, Sophia echoed. And to the life we've built together. They clinked glasses and drank, two people who had found each other in a conference room and built something neither had imagined was possible. They had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs. They had learned and grown and changed, always together. 2 years later, their son arrived, James Lucas Jameson, named for both grandfathers. Emma was thrilled to be a big sister, demanding to help with everything from diaper changes to bottle feeding. The house grew louder, more chaotic, and infinitely fuller. Lucas often found himself pausing during the day to simply marvel at his life. He would look across the dinner table at Sophia, helping Emma with homework while bouncing James on her hip, and feel overwhelming gratitude. This was success. Not the billions in the bank or the companies bearing his name, but this, the messy, beautiful, imperfect reality of a life built with someone he loved. Sophia felt it too. She had achieved more professionally than she ever dreamed, but none of it compared to the feeling of coming home to Lucas and their children. She had found her voice in boardrooms and her purpose in helping others, but she had found her heart in the family they had created together. On a Sunday morning when Emma was 7 and James was 3, the four of them lay tangled together in the master bed, watching cartoons and eating pancakes that Lucas had made and Emma had helped flip. James was sticky with syrup, and Emma was explaining the plot of her favorite show in exhaustive detail. Sophia and Lucas's eyes met over their children's heads, and they smiled the secret smile of two people who knew exactly how lucky they were. "I love you," Sophia mouthed. "I love you too," Lucas mouthed back. Emma noticed and groaned. "You guys are always doing that." "Doing what?" Lucas asked innocently, being gross and mushy. "We are not gross and mushy," Sophia protested. "We're affectionate." "That's what Dad said," Emma countered. "But my friend Olivia says her parents don't even hold hands anymore." "That's sad," James contributed, though he probably didn't fully understand. "It is sad," Lucas agreed, pulling Sophia closer and kissing her temple. "You guys should know something important. Your mom and I are always going to be mushy, as you put it, because we love each other, and love isn't something to hide or be embarrassed about. Even when you're old?" Emma asked. "Especially when we're old," Sophia said. "We'll be the mushiest old people you ever saw." Emma wrinkled her nose, but she was smiling. "Okay, I guess that's kind of nice." "Kind of nice," Lucas repeated, tickling her until she squealed. The morning dissolved into laughter and tickle fights, syrup and cartoons, the ordinary magic of family life. Later, when the kids were playing in the other room, Lucas pulled Sophia into his arms in the kitchen. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For taking a chance on me. For being brave enough to risk your career for a relationship that could have ended badly. For building this life with me." Lucas cupped her face in his hands. "For being exactly who you are." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. After all these years, he could still make her feel like the most important person in the world. "You make it easy to be brave. You've been my partner in every sense of the word." "Always," Lucas promised. "Through every argument you win, every meeting I cancel to be with you, every moment of our lives. Always." They kissed in the kitchen with sunshine streaming through the windows and the sound of their children's laughter echoing from down the hall. It was a perfect moment, one of thousands they had collected over the years, one of thousands more yet to come. Years continued to unfold with the beautiful predictability of a life well lived. Emma grew into a teenager with her mother's sharp mind and her father's business instincts. James developed a love for building things, taking apart electronics just to see how they worked, driving his parents slightly crazy but making them proud with his curiosity. The foundation Sophia had started grew into a nationally recognized organization, launching programs in 12 cities and helping over 2,000 women start careers in business. She wrote a book about her experiences that became a bestseller, though she insisted on donating all the proceeds to the foundation. Lucas continued to build and grow Jameson Industries, but with a different approach than he'd had in his early years. He mentored young entrepreneurs, invested in companies focused on social good alongside profitability, and made sure his own team had the work-life balance he had learned to value. His success was measured not just in dollars, but in lives changed and opportunities created. Through it all, they remained each other's constant. They still protected their Sundays when possible, still found time for date nights and quiet conversations. They argued sometimes about money or parenting or whose turn it was to deal with a leaking faucet, but they never went to bed angry. They had learned that the strength of their relationship wasn't in avoiding conflict, but in facing it together, with honesty and love. On their 15th anniversary, Lucas took Sophia back to the Hartman Capitol building where they had first met. The company had moved offices years ago, but Lucas had arranged access to the old conference room. "Why are we here?" Sophia asked as they stood in the empty room. "Because this is where it started," Lucas said. 15 years ago, I walked into this room and saw you take on a room full of men who underestimated you. I saw your brilliance, your courage, your fire, and I knew I had to know you. I had no idea you were even there at first," Sophia admitted. "I know. You were too busy being magnificent." Lucas took both her hands. "I've spent 15 years loving you, and I'm somehow more in love now than I was then. You've made me a better man, a better father, a better leader. You've shown me what truly matters. Lucas, let me finish. I know we're already married, and I know we've built a whole life together. But I want to ask you again, here in the place where it started. Sophia Lancaster Jameson, will you continue to be my wife, my partner, my love, for all the years we have left?" Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she nodded. Yes, always yes. They kissed in the empty conference room, two people who had grown together, changed together, built something lasting together. Outside the windows, the city glittered in the evening light, full of possibility and promise. "Take me home," Sophia said softly. "Always," Lucas replied. And they left the past behind and walked toward their future hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Their story had started with an argument and a canceled meeting, with professional respect that bloomed into something deeper. It had grown through challenges and celebrations, through sleepless nights with babies and proud moments at graduations, through the 1,000 small choices that build a life. It was a love story, yes, but more than that, it was a partnership story. A story about two people who saw the best in each other and worked every day to deserve that faith. A story about choosing love not just once but over and over again, in moments big and small. And it was far from over. There would be more arguments won, more meetings canceled, more moments of connection and joy, and the beautiful ordinariness of a life shared with someone who sees you, knows you, and loves you anyway. Emma graduated top of her class and went to business school, following in both parents' footsteps, but carving her own path. James got into MIT and started developing innovations in sustainable technology. Lucas and Sophia watched their children grow into remarkable adults and felt the deep satisfaction of knowing they had built not just successful careers, but a genuine family legacy. On a Sunday morning decades after that first conference room encounter, Lucas and Sophia sat together on their porch, watching the sunrise and sipping coffee. Their hair had more gray now, and their faces bore the lines of years well lived. But when Lucas reached for Sophia's hand, the gesture was as natural as breathing. "Happy?" he asked, like he had asked hundreds of times before. "Deliriously," Sophia answered, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You, more than I ever imagined possible." Lucas kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for being exactly who you are. Thank you for every argument, every challenge, every moment. Thank you for seeing me when others overlooked me. Thank you for building this life with me." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun climbed higher, warming their faces. Behind them, through the open door, they could hear their grandchildren, Emma's twins and James's daughter, starting to wake up, calling for breakfast and attention. "Duty calls," Lucas said with a smile. "The best kind of duty," Sophia agreed. They stood together, still holding hands, and walked back into their home filled with family and love and the accumulated joy of decades. It was an ordinary morning that was also extraordinary, another chapter in a love story that had begun with courage and continued with commitment. And as they stepped through the door into the happy chaos of their family, Sophia thought back to that young woman in the conference room, fighting to be heard, never imagining that the man by the door would change her entire world. That woman would be proud of the life she had built, the love she had found, the person she had become. Lucas thought about the driven young CEO who walked into that conference room expecting nothing more than another business meeting, who found instead the person who would teach him what truly mattered. That man would be amazed by the richness of the life he now lived, by the depth of love possible when you let someone in completely. They had won something far greater than any boardroom argument. They had won a lifetime together, and that was everything.